answered in 10 minutes? Ugh, no, let's watch Cook. No, fuck that. Let's save that. Let's kick that can. Let's kick that can and watch something fun. You guys want to watch something good? What if we watch something good instead? Ugh, God. No, you want me to do it now? Oh, God. All atheist arguments answered in 10 minutes. Ugh. Alright. All of them?
Atheists have a lot of arguments.
It has to do?
Are these all the arguments? Cleanse! I guess this is the cleanse. Atheist argument wheel. I believe in science. That means God can't be real. There's no evidence for God is really what this is. I was raised Christian and have trauma. They said not to sin. I was not raised Christian. Look, here is a violent Bible verse that nobody ever noticed before. So this is like in arguments about like, is God good or not? And then you're like, oh, hey, he's shitty. There's contradictions. There is contradictions in the Bible that the church has never noticed. There are contradictions there's contradictions in the Bible. Sky Daddy. If God is real, why don't I have a girlfriend? Wowzers. I've never heard that one. I don't need a God to know murder is bad. Don't ask about abortion, though. Gotcha. Your God did a genocide in the flood. He big meanie. So this is more like problem of evil. Sure.
They never really think of anything new that the church hasn't had answers to for the past.
Hey, Redeem Zoomer, if you don't think that we have any good arguments for atheism, I would love to have a discussion with you about why atheism is correct, and whatever religion you are is wrong. Like Catholic.
2,000 years. So let's answer them. Religion causes wars.
That's not what? This isn't an argument for atheism. This is just. Wow.
Well, actually, only 7% of all human wars were caused by religion.
How do you even measure this, man? I disagree with this, but...
And if you remove Islamic wars, that number drops down to 3%.
Is he calling the Crusades Islamic wars?
A lot of evil has been done in the name of religion. This is true, but the most murderous people in human history have been atheists.
Wow. I don't really agree with this.
This doesn't mean religion is true, it just means...
I don't think Adolf Hitler was an atheist, by the way. He was deeply spiritual, and he believed in lots of woo-woo shit. I would not consider him an atheist at all. I would debate Adolf Hitler about whether or not he's an atheist. I don't know about Pol Pot or Mao, though. Maybe. By atheist, he means not Christian. They were definitely not Christians. But I don't know anything about Pol Pot or Mao's beliefs in naturalism or the universe. Occultists are just spicy religious. Like, he was definitely into the occult and supernatural shit, like, just not an atheist.
Means you can't use that as an argument against it.
Disagree.
If you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't be a Christian. Okay, and if you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't be an atheist.
Maybe.
Everyone's...
This isn't an argument for atheism. Who's making these arguments? So this argument wouldn't... Okay, so this isn't an argument against atheism. This is an argument about how you come to be Christian and why it's not an organic thing for you to just, like, be a Christian, right? It's a socialized thing. It's just it's a social belief. You believe it because you were told to believe that, right? And there's no evidence for it. You wouldn't come to that conclusion independent of the people who socialized you to believe it. And it's almost always determined by geography.
Beliefs are shaped by their context. How do you know which religion is true? Well, everyone, religious or not, has faith in a certain worldview. It's just that some worldviews are called religions and some are secular. But everyone has to ask the question of which worldview best explains the world. There's no...
That wasn't an answer to the question. That was just a reason why... How do you know which religion is true? Well, so one of them's got to be true is not an answer to why your religion is true.
Scientific proof that God exists.
There is no scientific proof that God exists. That's true.
Well, by definition, science can only prove things inside the natural world, and by definition, God is something outside the natural world.
prove that things exist outside of the natural world. You know? You feel me?
So science can neither prove nor disprove God. There's no evidence of anything supernatural.
Correct.
Well, that's just not accurate. There
That's just not accurate. There's this book about demons.
are medically documented cases of people with demonic possession speaking in languages they don't know, for example.
There's reports of this case when people get, like, knocked on the head, man. And also, you not understanding what someone is saying does not mean they're speaking in a different language, for the record.
And people with near-death experiences getting information they never had access to.
Yeah, there's no evidence of this. That's not evidence of any supernatural things. Those are claims of supernatural things. They say, how could I have gotten this information? I don't know, man. Let's see.
The Bible has contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you think you found an apparent contradiction that the church hasn't known about for 2,000 years? Every apparent contradiction can be explained by understanding just a little bit of theology. The Gospels were anonymous.
There's no contradictions in the Bible? Fascinating. I mean, there's like direct contradictions in the Gospels. There's contradictions throughout the whole thing. I mean, this is just silly. It's obvious. I mean, it's pretty hard to tell somebody to just like accept reality when it's right in front of them, right? You're like, okay, well, what about these contradictions? Well, theology. Theology, of course. I mean, it doesn't sound like you're using your rational fucking thoughts. It sounds like you want Christianity to be true. And you're going to bend over backwards to make that happen for yourself. You know? This is embarrassing. Do you think someday this guy's going to be an atheist? I bet I can make this guy an atheist.
Okay, anonymous doesn't mean we have no idea who wrote them. It just means the names of the authors aren't signed in the text itself. But we literally have writings from church fathers who knew the apostles and can verify that they indeed wrote the books named after them.
So this is not the consensus on the authorship of the Bibles, especially the gospel, specifically the Gospels. They know for a fact that the people who wrote them weren't named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Like, they know this. This isn't like disputable. So Saint Ignatius of Antioch. So he lied, by the way. That was a liar. That guy's a liar. Yeah, this isn't how this worked. Every biblical scholar agrees that these were titles essentially given to, like, these were names just given to the things, to the letters.
The Gospels misquote Jesus. Now, it's true that a lot of secular scholars think the Gospels are a mix of real quotes from the...
Bert Ehrman. He is not a mythicist because he's wrong, but also Jesus didn't even exist, so just tossing that out there. Real quotes from historical Jesus, fake quotes added by the church. Yeah.
Historical Jesus and fake quotes added by the church, but none of them can agree on which quotes are legit and which are not, so we can discard their opinions.
Wow. Your argument for the accuracy of the Bible is that we can't even decide which ones are legitimate and which ones aren't, so we believe them all. Oof, man. So there are actually lots of places throughout the Bible where we can identify the places in the Gospels where the words of Jesus are changed from earlier editions to essentially adopt whatever new political agenda they were going for. There's many examples of this. If you want to see... If you want to see this kind of thing, you could read Richard Carrier books about this. They're super big, and you will stop believing that Jesus the guy even ever existed. You know, it's just like there's really not authorship. And in fact, Bert believes that Jesus was a real guy. For the record, the guy that's pictured here in the bottom left. Which I disagree with. I think that he's kind of a dork anyway. I don't really like him.
Jesus never claimed to be God. Yes, he did. He didn't say, I am God, worship me, but he showed that he was God in many places in all 4 Gospels by doing things that only God can do. It's true that he didn't walk around before his resurrection claiming to be God, because he wanted people to figure it out themselves. That's
this is Trinity argument stuff. Catholics really like to talk about the Trinity.
why he kept saying, who do you say that I am? However, after his resurrection, people figured out that he was God, and Jesus congratulated them. The later one of the Gospels was written, the more divine it makes Jesus seem, so we can extrapolate that Jesus was originally a human figure who got made more divine over time.
So this is true to some extent. More is evidence of... it's evidence of plagiarism by the later gospel writers. And it shows... it just shows, like, that this guy wasn't real. Pretty much. You know? It's just, like, the accuracy of the accounts gets less and less reliable as amazingly time goes on. This is 30 years after, when the average age expectancy was like fucking 35. You know what I mean? This is nuts.
Alright, maybe some Gospels emphasize Jesus' divinity more than others, but what about Paul's letters that fully confess the divinity of Jesus and were also written before any of the Gospels?
Paul's letters weren't written before the Gospels? For in Christ all the fullness of the...
So that breaks your pattern. The Bible supports slavery. No, it doesn't. Just because there's slavery in the Bible doesn't mean the Bible supports it.
The Bible literally does support slavery.
There are some Old Testament verses that could be interpreted as condoning slavery,
Quite
but
literally
Jesus
does.
himself said that the Old Testament made accommodations to people's sinful state. And also, slave owners in the American South had slave Bibles for their slaves to read, but it omitted a lot of the real Bible, so if the Bible actually did support slavery, this wouldn't have been necessary.
Slaves obey your masters, Jesus. Yeah, he literally told slaves to obey their masters, yeah. In Exodus, it tells you, how much you can beat your slave before you beat them too much. Like, you can't kill your slave, but if you knock them out and they're bedridden for a couple days, no biggie. Literally, it's written out in the Bible.
Christianity supported slavery. Well, sure, some Christians did, but all human civilizations have had slavery.
Oh my God. All human civilizations have had slavery is not a good argument. You're like, well, yeah, we did it too. It's bad, dude. It's a bad thing to do, and your religion supported it. The abolitionist movement was led by Christian extremists during the Second Great Awakening. It's crazy that you stopped beating your wife. You know what I mean? Like, how are you taking credit for something you started? Well, we started slavery, but then we stopped it. Wow, fucking pat ourselves in the back, dude. Let's go. And only through extremists could we get there. Well,
Christian civilization was the first one to abolish it on moral grounds. The fact that you're against slavery is due to Christian influence.
It
also,
isn't.
Most organizations fighting modern...
I am 100% uninfluenced by Christianity as far as my view is on slavery, actually. It's a deeply secular belief that you shouldn't be able to own people.
Day slavery are Christian. God killed tons of people in the Bible. Well, it's actually way more than that. God numbers everyone's days. He's the giver of life, so he can take it, especially if people sin. Atheist countries are more prosperous. Yes, it's true that
He's just like, it's good that God kills people. Okay.
Northern European countries are very prosperous and very secular, but correlation doesn't equal causation. It's not like atheism causes prosperity, it's that prosperity causes atheism, because when people have comfortable lives, they don't feel a need to depend on God.
Wow. This is an interesting take. Like, either way, you're fucked on the prosperity to atheism pipeline, no matter which direction you go, right? It's actually that prosperity causes people to be atheists because they're like, well, there's no reason to believe in this death cult on account of all my education I get under this prosperity. And if you went the other way, Atheism causes prosperity. Well, obviously, you can see problems with his worldview. Is it Venom Fang X? No. This guy's dumber than Venom Fang X. And that's saying something.
But why are these particular countries so prosperous in the first place? They may be secular now, but they're rooted in generations and generations of Protestant Christianity.
Nope. 3 of those countries are generations of fucking, like, Nordic, like, Asatru, essentially. Like, fuck off. The Germanic nations, like, how is... Man.
If you want an example of a country that's atheist and not rooted in Christianity, look at communist China.
Communist China. It's always communist China, dude.
There's 4,000 gods that people believe in, and you're atheist to 3,999 of them. I just go one god further. Okay, this isn't the gotcha that you think it is, because the question of whether some sort of god exists is fundamentally different from the question of which religion is right about God.
No. What? No. It's about how you come to reject the claims of the others, right? Like, how do you out of pocket... Like, you don't know anything about fucking... I don't know, Hinduism. But you reject the gods of Hinduism without, like, any scrutiny whatsoever. And you do so because... I'm going to be honest, typically, the correct answer, the knee-jerk answer is typically, and it ought to be, well, they don't influence my life in any way. Yeah, because your proximity to the religion isn't around, right? So you don't think when something happens, it's Vishnu pushing the cosmic button, right? Of course not. But, like, how can you pretend that is somehow making your God have some kind of space where it can live without that scrutiny applied to it? Seems strange.
If God created everything, then who created God? Well, God is defined as the uncaused causer.
Okay. The Big Bang is the uncaused causer. Boom. I win.
Everyone knows there needs to be a first cause at the beginning of the chain of all events in the universe, and it makes a lot more sense for that first cause to be a personal God who caused things for a reason.
Why?
Rather than some random impersonal force.
Wait, why does it... How does that make more sense? Explain how a personal God, which is much more complex than physics, occurred. Physics happened in a universe filled with physics is definitely... a reasonable answer over there's actually a personal intelligence anthropomorphized off in the distance of super nature. Like it's supernatural. It's in supernature. It's beyond the known universe. You can't measure it. You can't test it. It has all these personality quirks. It has these deep desires for how much you fap or don't. It cares whether or not you have dick skin or whether or not you fuck butts or ladies or whatever. It cares a lot about how much you beat your slave. And the earth, also that all happened 6,000 years ago. You know? That's, in spite of all the evidence to the contrary. You feel me? How is that more satisfying to you than physics is still happening? Like, physics happened. There's something about the early primordial universe that, in the roiling crunch of all matter that was the Big Bang, it expanded. It's just physics, man. It's cool. Isn't it a mystery? Don't you want to unravel the mysteries of the universe based on the evidence that we have for it, instead of making up your mind based on a fucking old story that uninformed people told 2,000 years ago and then filtered through thousands of years of patriarchs and kings and shit, people that were just trying to hold power over the masses in medieval times? Nope.
Science disproves God.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, the church invented modern science.
It didn't. It did not invent modern science.
All the founders of the scientific revolution
No.
deeply believed in God.
That's not the church doing it. And also, there were many atheists throughout that process, and many accused atheists throughout that process.
In medieval theologians...
Sir Isaac Newton and I would debate into the ground, okay? Fucking have him call me on Discord immediately. I would smash Sir Isaac Newton in a debate about God. 1v1 me, bro. I would smash his ass. He barely knew what gravity was. Barely.
Laid the groundwork for modern science by saying the world was governed by an intelligent creator. That means we can understand the world with our intelligence.
Yeah. They put Socrates to death for atheism and corrupting the youth. That's God. That's where God is.
And studying God led to studying the world because the world is God's creation.
Yeah, this is really fucking dumb, dude. No, people observed the world long before they had ideas of who the Christian God was. And cultures that never encountered the Christian God before colonization also had science and stuff. This happens throughout the world. It's specifically not just Christianity as well.
God is just used to fill in the gaps of things that science can't explain yet.
Dude, he's so whiny about this.
Well, actually, God is the reason for everything, even things that science can't explain.
There's no evidence to support this at all. This is such cope, man. This video sucks. Why did you guys make me watch this? This sucks. Redeemed Zoomer, are you gonna come talk? Will you come talk to me? Do you have a Twitter account? No, he doesn't have a Twitter account. How do we get a hold of the Redeemed Zoomer to have him come have a discussion? He can't even defeat his own strawman. It's crazy.
It's not one or the other. It's not like everything's explained by either science or God, and the more science can explain, the less God can explain. Really, science can explain almost everything, but God is still behind it all, because science explains the how, and God explains the why.
Why leukemia? God?
If God is good, why can't he destroy all evil? Well, he eventually will.
He eventually will? That's the argument. That's it. It's the whole thing. He has a Twitter? Follow. Discord. Hit me up. Let's give him a little finger gun action. Little shooter. Where are they at? Pew pew.
Why can't he do it now? Because he'd have to destroy you. Why does
He'd have to destroy you? God doesn't have any problems destroying humans, right? Is God capable of smiting people? Call him Sport. Okay. Hey, Sport. Since when is God incapable of murdering people? Or shy about it?
does God let any bad things happen? Because we deserve it.
So kids deserve leukemia is the stance that you're taking? It's a strong stance to take. He's got to say yes. He has to say kids deserve leukemia. Well, yeah, of course, their parents must have sinned or their grandparents.
Well, animals don't sin, so why do they suffer? Well, the Bible says all things will be restored, so if God is good, we can assume that they will be compensated.
If God is good, we can assume like reparations will be made to the dead animals. Brother, what? What kind of hopium is this shit, man? This is actually crazy.
How do you know that God isn't evil instead?
How do you feel about land back? He likes divine like animal payback, but he does not like land back.
Well, because evil is not a thing the way good is. Just like cold is just a lack of heat, and dark is just a lack of light, evil is just a lack of good.
Right. Okay. Evil is a lack of good. I disagree. Neutral things aren't evil. You know, like is an orange evil or good? He would say good. Is a tree evil or good? Is dirt evil or good? A snail. A Sour Patch Kid. A pimple. They just are, man.
And for good to be objective,
He literally hasn't answered any of these questions.
So a God who is objectively evil is logically impossible.
It's really not, actually. What? Don't you believe in Satan? Hello?
Can God make a rock he can't lift? Well, you're just asking if God can contradict himself.
Which he does.
Like, can God lie? Or can God change? Or can God make another God? And the answer to all those things is no.
But he's not all-powerful. Can't lie? I can fucking lie. The heck? God's incapable of lying? He can't change. He changes his mind literally in the Bible. Multiple times. A great example is Noah's flood. He lied in the garden in the first book, yeah.
God being all-powerful means he can do anything to things outside himself. It doesn't mean that he can do anything to himself.
Why not? The fuck? What? Are you telling me that Robin Williams' genie is stronger than God?
That he can contradict himself. Why did God let evil exist at all? So he could be glorified in defeating it. Triumph over evil is a greater good than evil having just never existed.
Why? That's really an anthropomorphic way to look at it. This reminds me of an argument. It's called the non-God universe. Why would God, a perfect being, create anything other than God, thus creating imperfection in the universe? I think it's an interesting one. I think you could just say, well, God wanted to create stuff to see, right? But then you get into questions of omniscience and stuff, so it's pretty tough. God just doesn't exist, is the answer.
Religion is just wishful thinking. Well, if that were true, then the Bible wouldn't be all about how much we all suck.
It's interesting that you agree that the Bible is a way to, like, control people's lives. Yeah, man. This is a deeply rooted problem with the Bible. It does, in fact, tell everyone that they suck because it's a deeply negative piece of, like, propaganda written by a conservative man, and men over time. It's bad. Yeah. It's just a wrong book, man. It's amazing. The chat answer is the Bible tells us we suck. Religion is wishful thinking. But it is wishful thinking. Like, the promise of heaven and salvation is still wishful thinking. Because it's saying that even though we suck, we can still be saved. Which is cope.
Psychology explains why you believe in God. So what? If God is real, we should expect there to be some psychological or social benefit to believing in him.
I've never heard anyone say psychology is why you believe in God. Like that you were brainwashed or something? But what does he think psychology?
Spiritual experiences can be explained by brain chemicals. Well, romantic experiences can also be explained by brain chemicals, but that doesn't mean your wife isn't real.
So, exactly. Great argument for myself. Thank you. Right, because I can see my wife, and my wife has evidence for her, and the spiritual experience that you're having doesn't have evidence for it.
So spiritual experiences being explained by brain chemicals doesn't mean that God isn't real. Well, drug trips show that spiritual experiences are from the brain. Well, people who have had both drug trips and near-death
What?
experiences say that they're completely different categories of feeling.
Yeah, man, things happen in your brain when you're about to die that are different from drugs? Yep. Why is this so stupid? I thought I was going to get owned, man. They were all answered in 10 minutes. Who's making these arguments? Who are you talking to? Who are these people?
The story of Jesus was copied from the story of Horus or some other.
This isn't accurate. The story of Jesus was very similar to the other salvation gods of the time that were in vogue in all of the related areas. Like, literally everywhere around that. Egypt, Syria, Jordan, all of it. There were many different gods contemporary. And they all shared similar... Oh, man. Think of them like Marvel movies from different studios. You know what I mean? Like how they did Spider-Man, and then they did Venom, and then they do like the Marvel stuff. Shazam, Flash. They all had their different versions. It was a pop culture thing.
Other ancient character. Okay, dude, that's a Reddit atheist level myth. Even atheist scholars know that that's silly.
Yeah, but that's not the argument. That's like just a bad one.
Faith is the opposite of logic and reason.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. Faith just means trust.
You have faith in logic and reason?
Anytime you eat food, you're having faith that it's not poisoned, even if you can't scientifically prove it.
No, I don't think about it being poison. It's not faith. I take for granted it's not poison because I probably cooked it, that's not having faith.
If you're married, you have faith that your wife loves you, even if you can't scientifically prove that. And if you tried to scientifically prove it, she'd probably get very mad at you because it would mean you didn't trust her. Evolution proves God didn't create the world. Well, not necessarily. God often works through natural processes in the Bible. And for all of church history...
Do you believe in evolution? That's awesome. That's actually a W. We got there.
There have been prominent Christian theologians who have had a more metaphorical interpretation of Genesis, even well over 1,000 years before Darwin.
So, like, for instance, like, he learned stuff over time. Most influential. Genesis is metaphorical. Man. There's so many different ways that you could go. It's not just metaphorical, it's just fake, man. Obviously, the whole thing's metaphorical and made up.
I hope you will have a fantastic day.
Like, Paul didn't think this was metaphorical, though, in the Gospels. I don't think even, like, the purported Jesus would have thought they were metaphorical. Manic Jack Attack, given to Ivy, Nova, Red, thank you.
Darwin existed. Christianity only spread because of military conquest.
Happy to have you.
Well, eventually they did do military conquest, but for the first 300 years of Christianity, it was illegal, and it took over the Roman Empire despite that because of how popular it became.
I mean, it's a religion that came out of, Judea, not their official Roman one, so it was, like, illegal for sure, but it's not... I don't think anyone makes the Christianity spread by military conquest initially argument. Like, it did, for sure, eventually. Spread by military conquest. It's just a colonizer thing, for sure, but, yeah.
Constantine invented what we now know of as Christianity. Again, Reddit atheist level myth.
Really.
Atheists can do better than that. Listen to an actual scholar. If Christianity is true, why are there so many denominations of it? Well, yeah, there are a lot of denominations, but the things they agree on are a lot more significant than the things they disagree on.
That's such cope, man. These are not good answers. Like, you actually have to reconcile this. You have to figure out the answer to that. How are you making videos on this if you don't have hard stances on these things?
There's no evidence for Jesus outside the Bible. Well, that's not true. There's the ancient Jewish historian Josephus who wrote
No.
about Jesus, and he's one of the reasons why even secular scholars know Jesus historically existed.
The Josephus thing, first off, this is a second-hand account, or a third-hand account, way later, like far after the death of the purported Jesus, and, to make matters worse, scholars, the people that you just said that we should check on and listen to, believe very strongly that this was fabricated later on to make a mention of Jesus, because this specific mention of Jesus is literally out of nowhere, and it's not mentioned again, and it's just shoved into the passage. The authorship style sort of changes. It is widely considered a hoax. Yeah. Josephus did this like 100 years after or so.
You really think
I don't
God...
think it was 400 years after. Josephus. I don't think it was 400 years. Let me look it up. No. It was near the end. He died in 100 AD. So, yeah, it was like 80 years after.
God made billions of galaxies with billions of stars in each of them just to have a personal relationship with you?
Yeah, are there other planets and guys and stuff?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. That's cringe. Not very bright boy. I'm not really surprised, I guess. I would love the Christians to have good arguments for their stuff, man. Make me feel a little better about how they think, but they don't, They just don't think.